A serious case involving national security has collapsed because this government is too weak to stand up to China.
The substantive evidence was provided in 2023 by the previous government.
Those spies were charged under a Conservative government. They were let off under Labour. What on earth is the point of us having a lawyer rather than a leader as the Prime Minister if he can't even get the law right?
The failed prosecution of the alleged China spies is dogging the Prime Minister. This evening, the government published its witness statements at the heart of the case, which do state that between 2021 and 2023, the UK government publicly articulated a number of concerns about the long-term strategic challenge China poses to the UK, including the increasing espionage threat posed to the UK. But they also conclude that the UK government is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China. We will cooperate where we can, compete where we need to, and challenge where we must, including on issues of national security. Earlier, Keir Starmer said the statements couldn't be stronger because the Conservative government in power at the time of the alleged offences had not designated China a threat.
What was an issue in the trial is not the position of the current government, the position of the last government. And they carefully avoided describing China as an enemy because that was their policy at the time.
It is simply unbelievable that he is trying to say the last government did not classify China as a threat. So I will refresh his memory. In 2021, the previous government's integrated review described China as the biggest state-based threat to the UK's economic security. In 2024, the Minister for Security said from that dispatch box that China poses a threat. But let's leave aside the government. In 2022, the Director General of MI5 in November classified China as a threat in his remarks.
It was under the Conservative government in March 2023 that Christopher Cash, a parliamentary researcher, and Christopher Berry, who'd lived in China, were arrested, accused of passing secrets to Beijing, which they deny. In December that year, the Deputy National Security Advisor, Matthew Collins, provided a witness statement to the prosecution over the threat China represented. In July 24, the CPS asked for further evidence and 2 additional statements were provided by Collins. But in September 25, all the charges were dropped because that evidence didn't meet the threshold for prosecution. The government has been trying to warm up relations with China, with suggestions it may have prioritised trade over national security. The former minister, who was due to be a key witness in the trial, asked this.
The real question is, what political direction did this government give to their officials before they went to give evidence?
Absolutely none.
But legal experts question the government's interpretation.
The current government is being very selective in how it characterises the previous government's position, and there is quite a lot of information in the public domain that would suggest that the Conservative government did consider China to be a threat at the relevant time.
This former MP says without a trial, he and other suspected victims may never know what information the Chinese could have on them.
And we've had briefings from the security services and from parliamentary security as well, that we have been hacked and that we are mentioned in these files. We don't know the extent of it, we don't know what, so we're concerned about exactly what information has been given over to the Chinese authorities.
This evening, the chairs of parliamentary committees were said to be told by the Director of Public Prosecutions that the evidence the government provided was only 5% below what was needed. The question is why the government held back, but also why the DPP allowed that to collapse the case. Romilly Weeks, News at 10.
Well, Robert's here to try and answer some of those questions tonight. And Robert, this is a really, really complicated case. We know it does hinge on these witness statements, and they have only broken in the past half an hour or so. You've been reading them as we've been sitting here on air this evening. Just tell me what stands out for you and what assessment you make of them.
So, it is quite complicated. There are 3 witness statements, all made by the Deputy National Security Advisor, a man called Matthew Collins, and the Director of Public Prosecution, the Crown Prosecution Service, were relying on him to demonstrate that China represented a very serious threat to our security. And in all three of them, there is discussion of the espionage capability of the Chinese state, how they have been shown to have tried to hack really quite sensitive systems like that of the Electoral Commission. But then in this statement, there is ambiguous language. So my own view about almost certainly why in the end the DPP decided, the Director of Public Prosecutions, a man called Stephen Parkinson, decided not to proceed is because in the last two statements, one made when we had a Conservative government and another made much more recently in August when we had Starmer in charge, the man basically, this is the National Security Advisor, he makes a very similar sort of statement in each of them. And he says it's important to emphasise the government is committed to pursuing a positive economic relationship with China. The government believes that the UK must continue to engage with international partners on trade and investment to grow our economy, etc. That was under the Tories, under Labour. It's important for me to emphasise that the UK is committed to pursuing a positive relationship with China to strengthen understanding, cooperation and stability. The government's position is that we will cooperate where we can, compete where we need to and challenge where we must. Now, in a court of law, you know, when you are defending these two men accused of spying, you're just going to stand up and say, you know, the Official Secrets Act of 1911 says you have to prove that the state in question is this terrible enemy trying to do us terrible harm. And on the record, the government's own witness says, actually, in many ways, we want to be friendly with them. So I do sort of now understand why the DPP wasn't able to pursue. And I just think for both Kemi Badenoch, who represents the Conservative Party, and for Keir Starmer, both of whom said they deeply regret the fact that this prosecution didn't go ahead, I think they've got to look to themselves and say, well, how on earth could we have won this if we are not prepared to use much stronger language about the threat that China poses?
OK, Robert, plenty more questions to be answered tomorrow. Thank you very much for that this evening.